Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Fear, and I'm here with a great Mountaineer, Steve Newberry. Many of you know Steve for his stellar play in the defensive backfield at Morgantown. Steve, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
It's a pleasure. I was mentioning to Steve before the game that we're going to start with a somber note, and you'll note that I put in the chat. We put in the chat both the video that our executive producer Joey Foster cut yesterday. I didn't see it until today, and then also the link for the GoFundMe that has been set up by one of the Foster family's friends that will help the family enormously, and we encourage you to contribute as you can. Joey announced in the video that you can watch. Again, it's in the chat that he's no longer effective immediately going to be doing on-air shows, so he won't be on the. I hope at least some guest shots will occur, but he won't be doing his weekly shows and won't be doing the pregame as he has been doing. And of course, Joey's become a good friend. He's a good friend to many people out there. He's just, there are givers and there are takers, and Joey's a giver, and he's just been great to me and so many other people, and you know that. So say a word to Joey, throw a comment on the video, and if you can, contribute to the GoFundMe. Steve, this is a big game tonight. They all seem big, don't they? I mean,
They do.
I was mentioning to Greg Chris, my partner, the other day that you go all through the summer, and the time seems to go so slowly through that hourglass getting ready for the football season, and then it goes boom, 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 boom. Here we are in the seventh week. Your take as a former player, Steve's in the WVU Hall of Fame for his play. Your take on the Mountaineers so far, and your thoughts about what you're looking for tonight.
Well, I think first of all, I think we've got a team that's resilient. I think we've got a team that's just really close. We haven't been far off. Just a critical mistake here and there, and in the games we've lost, it's just made a difference, I believe. But I think the guys are competing hard. I think they're trying to put their best foot forward each week, and you're right. Each week, the games just keep getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and one of the things that we all really know is that the Big 12 season is not going the way people predicted. I mean, Cincinnati pulled off a big win this afternoon at home against Arizona State. Arizona State had been on a run, but it's just the Mountaineers don't control their destiny. They did before the loss to Iowa State, but they're still in the mix. And another team we thought, in fact, many pundits thought was predicted to be the leader going into the season for the Big 12 is Arizona, and they've struggled mightily. Your thoughts about the Big 12 and how it's going?
Well, there's a lot of parity, that's for certain. I don't think there are any gimmies week to week. You look at Oklahoma State; they almost they went out to BYU last night and almost pulled the upset there. And like you said, Cincinnati won a big game today. Yeah, every team has players. All these teams have good players, and every team can beat the other any given Saturday.
Yeah, isn't that true? The parity is unbelievable. We knew there would be a difference after UT and Oklahoma left, but we weren't quite sure. And I'm looking at the most recent Kansas, as we expected, has finally rebounded. I mean, that team is too good to keep on losing. They're spanking Houston 42-14 with 6 minutes left. Colorado, which I thought had Kansas State last week, and then boom, a couple pass plays, and Johnson brought the Wildcats back. They're spanking Arizona. That's who we play next, the Arizona Wildcats, next Saturday. Right. And it's 28-7, again with 6 minutes left in the third. And we talked on our Wednesday show, which you've been on before. to really good reviews, I might add. We said, Baylor's just too good to keep on losing, and they had a chance against Iowa State at Ames a couple of weeks ago, and then the quarterback threw an interception, and that was it. But now they're beating Texas Tech at Tech
Yep.
in their backyard brawl, 24-14, started the third quarter, and of course Cincinnati beat Arizona 24-14, and we play them after our second bye week. And you're right, it's just a very, and I think your thoughts. I think this plays into WVU's favor. I mean,
Well,
I think they do.
still, yeah, I agree with you. And we still have a lot to play for. I know we're down after last week's game against Iowa State, and things didn't go the way we wanted, and but we still have a lot of football to play, and we still have a lot to play for. And if we can, bounce back tonight, play well against Kansas State, get the win, it's just tomorrow, all of us wake up feeling a whole lot better about everything.
That's right. And what seemed to be a mountain to climb, going out to Arizona, going out to Tucson to play the Wildcats, now doesn't seem like that. It's more like
Right.
now more like going into the Oklahoma State game a couple of weeks ago. And so that makes sense. I'm going to ask you a sensitive question, but it's all over the press. We talked about it a bit at the end of our Wednesday show. Joey's talked about it. Shane, who's also on the network, has talked about it. Your thoughts as a person who obviously played at West Virginia, pay close attention to what's happening at the university. We know that there's a lot of pressure on Coach Brown, and how can I put it? We knew it wouldn't take much for that to basically go a certain way. But your thoughts about the money that's been raised, the plane that's been secured, and the banner that's going to fly around the stadium before tonight's game, fire Coach Brown. As a former player and a person who's close to the university, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I understand the frustration. I really do. And, ultimately wins and losses is usually what a coach is measured by in the end. But I know for a fact that, these guys, the coaching staff, the coaches, the coaching staff, the players, they're trying to put the best product they can out on the field, and nobody wants to go out and play bad. Nobody wants to make mistakes, but it happens. But on the other hand, I really understand where people's coming from, and they're frustrated, and I hope that, like I said, if we come out and we play well tonight and we get a win, that will kind of calm things down just a little bit, I hope. But, there's nobody, I guarantee you, from a former player standpoint, there's nobody in that locker room that feels worse than those players do. And the coaching staff does. There's really nobody that feels worse after a loss than those guys do. And, it's hard. It's really hard, to play at this level and compete at this level, and just what we talked about, so much parity in the league and around college football altogether. It's tough to do. And, like I said, we're pretty close in some areas, I believe. We're really close, and it's just a little mistake here and there, or something happened here and there, and it doesn't fall our way and doesn't go our way.
Yeah.
But I know that doesn't mean we got bad people as coaches. It doesn't mean we got bad people as players.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a tough chore to get done. It really is.
Yeah, I think of what you're talking about, and also as a former defensive back, that situation where that Iowa State receiver was wide open, and we found out immediately in the press conference, but in more detail on Coach Brown's Monday press conference following the game, that with this new microphone setup in the helmets, the players got different messages.
Yeah.
And so as a consequence, some players went one way, other players went one way. And that's a good example, I think, of something happens. Now,
Right.
we were talking before the game, and for those who don't know, WVU just announced. I looked at it and it said 58 minutes earlier was the release, and that was about 15 minutes ago. So it was just released that two defensive backs, Aubrey Burks and Garnes, will not play tonight. So I'm sure you played in games, Steve, where your partners or yourself couldn't go at the last minute. Your thoughts about that dynamic?
It always changes things just a little. That person having to step in at the at a moment's notice may probably didn't get as many reps during the week as the starter did. And anytime there's a late scratch or a late injury, that can jumble things a little bit. I mean, we always talk about the next up mentality, and that's a saying you've heard around sports for recent years a lot of times, and that's true. But that next person up may have not has seen as many scout team plays during the week as that starter did, and that's just the way it is. I mean, there's just you've got to rep those as many times as you can with who you count on being there the most. But I'm hoping that the person that the players that fill in for those guys, that they do step up, they do have good games, and we can mesh. And what you said about I didn't hear the press conferences during the week or anything like that, but communication is a huge part of it, especially in some of the defenses that teams play nowadays. When we broke the huddle, when we broke the huddle, we usually had a minimum of 3 coverages called, and it depended on what the team we were playing. It depended on how they came out, where motion went, what the backs did, and sometimes we may change coverages before the ball was snapped 2 times, and sometimes that, and of course back then we didn't have those microphones and everything else. We did it by hand signals and verbally, but sometimes that happens, and that's what it looked like to me last week. As soon as that happened, I think I told my wife or who all was sitting in the room, I said it looked like a couple people were playing man to man and a couple people were playing zone. And that happens. Unfortunately, it's happened to us a few times, and we've got to get that cleaned up. There's no question. I mean, we've got to get that cleaned up, but hopefully that'll happen soon.
Yeah. Another piece that, and Coach Brown's taken some criticism for it, but I would say, and again, we're both homers, as they say, but I think I was at Michigan State for a long time, so saw an awful lot of decades worth of Big Ten football. And one of the things that was pretty consistent in the Big Ten was it being at the top of the food chain, is the officiating was pretty good. Better in football, I think, than basketball, but that's arguable. It's like, which wine do you prefer if you're a wine drinker? Different people have different opinions, but I have not been impressed with the officiating in the Big 12 this year. I think Coach Brown is absolutely right. One of those interceptions that Garrett Green threw, shouldn't have been thrown, the second one. I mean, he was baited into it. You could see it, and he was baited into it. He admitted it, which you like to see players do. They admit when they make mistakes. But the other one, there was a push in the back, and there shouldn't have been one. But it's so hopefully the officiating will be better tonight. But we'll just have to see. But again, very few games do officiating at the end of the day make the big difference. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, I'm going to put a chart up that Greg and Mickey will be with us later. Mickey will be with us later, and I talked about Greg Christ, and I talked about, and that when you look at the stat comparisons, and this is pretty basic stats. How's your quarterback doing? what's the performance level of your receivers, your running backs? Who are the leaders of the defense? And how are you doing nationally in terms of total offense and defense? When you look at this, you have to say, boy, it seems like the K-State publicity machine has really performed well. You know, look at that Avery Johnson, who gets all kinds of rave reviews. Who has more yards? Garrett Green.
Right.
He's thrown more touchdowns, 11-8, but Green only has one more interception, and Green has a higher QBR. So you say to yourself, okay, Avery Johnson, a lot of attaboys. Garrett Green, you know, a lot of deep size, and the same thing with respect to the running backs. We have a triple threat in terms of the rushing game, which was really apparent against Oklahoma State, not at all against Iowa State. But you look at Donaldson, White, and Green, and they're 380, 400, 380. Not that much of a difference in terms of the number of carries. And you've got two guys, White and Green, that are averaging 6 yards a carry, whereas and they've got a great one at Kansas State.
Yeah, they did.
Giddens the guy, and you'll notice in the bottom line, in the next line, what they've done is they're moving him more into a double threat guy. He's carrying the load. I think he leads the league. I may be wrong. I think he leads the league in both yards and yards per. That should be yards per carry. Yeah, YPC. And he's got twice as many carries as any other running back, and he's doing a good job with respect to receiving. But your thoughts when you look at those offensive stats as a defensive guy?
Well, right. And the thing about that that strikes me, and no disrespect to K-State at all, because they're a very good football team, but look who they've done that against compared to us. I don't know. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say our strength of schedule to date might be a little bit tougher.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree. I mean, they opened up against was it South Dakota? No, that was Oklahoma State. I'm thinking of Oklahoma State opened up against South Dakota State, but I think it has been tougher. The big game they've had so far is against BYU when they went up there, and that was the one that opened everybody's eyes.
Right.
And I was talking with a colleague today, and I mean, when you think about the two teams to me in the Big 12 that have been the biggest surprises, when you looked at the performance last year of both Cincinnati and BYU, coming in from Group of Five, Cincinnati, independent status, getting used to the Big 12, neither made a bowl. WVU spanked both. They both look inept. It was Satterfield's first year at Cincinnati, and now, those two teams are tough. Obviously, BYU's leading the conference, and Cincinnati will be up soon for WVU, and they really took care of business today as we talked against Arizona State, and as you mentioned, BYU came from behind in exactly the opposite of last year. BYU went to Stillwater to close the season with a bowl game on the line, and they went into overtime, and Oklahoma State won that game. This year it was just reversed up in Provo, and so it's that schedule does matter. Your thoughts about this? The last two lines there, they surprised me a bit. The total offense again. You think, especially after watching the end of that Colorado game, 47th ranked nationally on offense, 6.77 yards per play, 2,600 total yards. But West Virginia is right there, 49th nationally, 6.27 yards per game.
Yeah, I agree. On paper, it looks like these two teams are pretty equal. And unfortunately, though, we don't play them on paper, though, and we just have to have some things go our way. We have to run the football. I think I'm kind of an old school guy. I think
Yep.
if you can't run the football, then you don't have a great chance of winning. But and then on the other hand, like you said, this DJ Giddens, from what I haven't seen very much of K-State, but what I have seen and what I've read, this DJ Giddens is a real deal, and he can really go. And then the quarterback Johnson is really quick. We're going to have our hands full trying to contain him, and which we're going to have good backside coverage and backside play, and allow that front to do what they do and try to put some pressure and try to contain him. But it's going to be an uphill battle, and we're going to have to have some guys step up and make some big plays.
Yes, I mean your comment about the rushing, that's to me that's WVU's identity. When you've
Yeah.
got three guys that can carry the ball and they're going to come at you at different ways, like the speedster Donaldson right up the middle, Garrett Green, Shifty, and the bottom line is, and it's interesting because I mentioned to you, we had Rick Trickett on the show on Wednesday, and we played a tape from ESPN where the commentators were talking about Jacksonville State, where he's the line coach now, and they were talking
Right.
about Rick Trickett, and they were saying how, boy, once they get started, Jacksonville State running a West Coast style offense runs, and we talked with Rick about that. And for people who didn't see the show, this is what he said. He said, the DNA of us, and you saw it at West Virginia when Rich Rod was here with Pat White, is that when you've got this West Coast style offense, you don't just throw, you can run. I mean, look at Pat White,
Right.
all time one of the biggest yardage gainers both on the ground and in the air. And he said that's what we try to do, and it opens up the running. He made the
Sure.
comment, I wrote it down. He said if you can run the ball well, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And if you can't run the ball well, you have trouble doing things. And
Oh, yeah.
so we got away from that last week. A lot of it has to do with the front that Iowa State has. In fact, what Iowa State did was after the first series, they used two nose guards essentially, and that hurt. But I think the thing that we have to take into consideration is WVU's got to run the ball. Now the thing about this chart that is also notable, Steve, under defense. And that, by the way, I made a mistake. That shouldn't say Iowa State. It should say Kansas
Right.
State up in the banner.
Sure.
Yeah, they have 18 sacks. 18 sacks this year. I'm not sure there's a team we played that is even close to that. 18 sacks.
Right.
And-
Well,
and
I understand they got two defensive ends. It's pretty good,
yeah,
and I'm anxious to see what they're like. But they're going against a couple tackles that are pretty good too. I think it. Oh shoot. I'm sorry, lost my thought there. But Wyatt Mile.
yeah,
I think his ranking or his national ranking is way up there.
it is.
It'll be interesting to see who can win that battle. And if, like I said, we're going to have to run the football. And if we can run the football, that like you mentioned, that opens up a lot of things. And we need to. As old coach I heard one time say, he said, throw it when they think you're going to run and run it when they think you're going to throw it. So
That's right.
if you can get into that situation, then, you definitely got the upper hand.
Yeah, it reminds me of Bobby Bowden and his mantra that game plans are great, but it's when you're on the sidelines and you're sizing things up and you make a
Yeah.
call and it's like in baseball, hit them where they ain't. Going
That's
on
right.
that,
That's
yeah,
right.
the West Virginia defense there. If you look at it, we know that Garnes is going to be out, but if you look at the guys that are leaders of the defense in terms of numbers, Anthony Wilson has really stepped up at safety. We knew Trotter was really good.
Right.
We missed him when he was out last year for a time. We know Lathan is really good. and Bradley has really come forward. Plus 3 more guys. Garnes is out. Joseph in the backfield. Jackson. My God, has he done well? Gets great scores. And so,
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say it's a little alarming. I think Jackson might be nicked up a little bit too.
Ooh.
What I understand, it might be a game time decision on him. So,
Oh boy.
if he's not there, then it's really going to throw us behind the 8 ball. But I agree with you. He's had one well of a season so far.
Okay. The other thing that I would say about that chart is 13 sacks on our part. We're going to have to put pressure, just like this obviously doesn't have to be said, but the fact of the matter is, you just can't give these Power 5 starting quarterbacks with experience, even the new ones, time to throw.
No.
That killed us against Pitt. It hurts us, and unlike the situation at Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago, Avery Johnson's coming in with a lot of confidence. I mean, that win against against Colorado last week, when it looked like, they were celebrating in Boulder, and he came and just ripped that defense apart. It's really, really critical that we not only control Johnson, but one of the things that we talked about earlier, I'll just reemphasize. The great thing about running and running well, and you saw it in the first quarter of last week's game, it eats up the clock, and they can't score unless you make a mistake and their defense scores. So
Sure.
the time of possession in that first quarter is absolutely critical. No question about it.
It is, and we're going to have to contain this guy. He can really go, and if he gets to the second level, then watch out. He has a chance to take it all the way at any time.
Yeah. For those who are watching, I'm just going to let you know we're going to try something new tonight, and we hope to be able to do it in the future. For example, there is a Nashville bar down in Tennessee that Mark Bulger owns. That's the place where Mountaineer fans in Nashville go to their game watches. And tonight we've got our partner Mickey Plumley, who's a partner on the Wednesday show at 7 o'clock, Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. He's down in Atlanta at Laseter's, and so he's going to be bringing in some guests for us. Mountaineers down in Atlanta, Georgia. In fact, let me throw up this graphic that we put together especially for tonight. Let me look. It's up here. It's got to be up here somewhere. Let me see. Where are you? I got so many things, Steve, that I do here. Sometimes I can't find. There we go. There it is. So look at that. So this is coming from Laseter's Tavern on Cobb Parkway in Atlanta. You can see there's the Game Watch logo that says that tonight at 7:30 it's going to start. The Peachtree chapter, which is an excellent chapter, and you can see a photo there of past Game Watches. And I think Mickey's ready. So what I'm going to do is take that out and bring him in. And there, I should come in, and there he is. Hey, Mickey, it's yours. Oh, you're got to get your audio on. Let me see. There we go. Let me get it off. I think I can do it. There we go.
Oh, my mic muted, Frank. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
We're okay now.
Wonderful. Hey,
Cool.
Thanks so much for having us on the show here this evening. I'm here with a couple of my dear friends that I just wanted to introduce you to real quickly. First of all, Bill Toothman, who is the outgoing president of the Peach State chapter of the WVU Alumni Association. And we also have with us this evening Kristin Sumner, who is the incoming president of the chapter. Now, what I want you to know about Mr. Toothman here in particular, Frank, you'll appreciate this. He was sitting up in the stands as you were watching the 1969
Peach Bowl.
edition of the Peach Bowl, and
Yeah.
was up in the stands between 66 and 69. Bill has served very unselfishly and unrelentingly as the chapter president of our Peach State chapter here for at least 25 years.
About 30, whatever.
Probably more than
Doesn't
that.
matter.
I got here in 1989. I think
I
you were
started
president
a little
then.
bit after 90.
Okay, so it's more like 34 years, and he's finally decided to give up the reins, and he's turning over to Kristin Sumner. And Bill, I just wanted to give him a little airtime to talk about what the chapter does down here in Atlanta and some of his more memorable moments as being president of the chapter for the past 34 years. So, Bill?
I'll try to be very quick. First of all, this chapter in 1990 virtually didn't exist. They had 6 or 7 chairs around a TV in a corner of a bar. And I think it was about 30 years ago, I realized we had to find a new place, and we came over to the Laseter's Tavern, which has been our home since. And the owner, Rich, said, you know what? We'll try it. But he didn't have the TVs we needed. He didn't have the tables we needed. He didn't have any of that. But before we started, he had it all. We've been here ever since. If you look at the wall in there, it's a very, very busy bar, but the entire wall is covered with WVU stuff. And the Chaz, as far as the chapter goes, one of the things we're proudest of is we have funded an academic and an athletic scholarship based on the contributions we've gotten for a student going to WVU from Georgia, athletically or academically. Some of the other things we've done when we had a closer affiliation with the National Association in Morgantown is we hosted probably 6 or 8, and maybe a little bit more, of the official WVU events. So, for example, if you go to Austin, Texas, you go to the WVU party, which we did. And so that was a great gratification for them to allow us to do that. And we've always had great members who participate. We have fun. And as I said, we got two
members in the chapter, would you say, Bill?
Right now, you know, a lot of people, we don't force people to join. We collect every day, but I would say maybe 40, 50?
Probably.
Yeah, 40 or 50.
All right.
Just this year.
And how much money have you raised, has the chapter raised towards scholarships in those 34 years? Would you say?
Over 100, 110?
Over 150.
Over 110,000.
Over 150 wow. Because we have the 2 scholarships. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and we do other things. We go to major league games and stuff like that. And
we
frankly,
just have a great time.
Yeah, we have a good time. Everybody's welcome. We encourage people to come. I apologize for my eye, by the way. I keep seeing it. And we've just come from a virtual baby to a very grown adult.
But we haven't matured in it. We just got older. We did not mature at all. We just got older. A couple of things let me bring up here.
Hold on just a second.
Okay, go ahead.
I talked about how long we've been together, how long we've been doing this. But our goal is to continue to grow and get bigger.
There you go. A couple of long-standing traditions I just wanted to mention briefly here, Frank, and then I'll turn over to Kristen, the incoming president, for just a moment. We always, at the end of the game, as they do in Morgantown, get in a big circle around the bar tables and win or lose, sing "Take Me Home," Country Roads. We also, at some point in the game, you'll hear Neil Diamond song come on, and we sing the familiar lyrics that every West Virginia fan knows from the day they were born until the day they die. So we have a lot of spirit, a lot of camaraderie. We have a great time. We typically get 35, 40 people show up for a game, if not more.
And let me say this. We have had, when WVU we had a closer relationship with the CEO and his number one assistant. And when West Virginia started playing Southern schools, for example, in Texas, we ran the party the first 4 times we were in Austin. And we ran it for WVU, but we did it. And we've done that all over the South, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. I'll shut up.
Very good.
Let me bring Kristin Sumner in.
Yeah,
Kristen.
Kristen.
This is Kristen, and she's the incoming president. Maybe you could talk a little bit about our annual events, the Derby Day and the golf tournament, those sorts of things.
Yeah, so one of our biggest fundraisers that's made all these scholarships possible is our annual golf tournament. And Laseter's throws a Kentucky Derby party. And so what we've done to help support them and to give them, to thank them for all their support over these years is we now pair our golf tournament the Friday before the Kentucky Derby. And so we can do a cross promotion. And if people come in, we're like, hey, come to Laseter's and the next day for the Derby party. And we have fun. Watch horse racing all day and all of that. So, but like our biggest fundraiser for the year is usually our golf tournament.
And any WVU fans are invited to come down. Typically, we do that in May. Right?
Yes, yeah. This year,
second Saturday in May, typically something like that.
The Derby is the first Saturday in May,
Oh,
and
that's
so
right.
our golf tournament. Let me just open up my calendar. I'm always like, I don't like to get on the phone when I'm like talking to people. I feel like it's kind of rude, but I'm just checking my calendar. Our Peach State golf tournament is going to be on May 2nd,
All right.
2025. We will probably start publishing and posting things to sign up somewhere around probably February, March. So follow us on Facebook. We'll post there. We also have an Instagram account that will post some graphics on that. But yeah, and the Kentucky Derby is the following day.
Big party.
Yeah, it's a big party here.
I want to mention one other thing about Kristen here. 2 weekends ago.
Oh, yeah.
She, on her own accord, after the devastating floods over in Western North Carolina and Tennessee, took it upon herself to solicit all of us in the chapter for donations and goods. And she made a trip all the way from Atlanta. Well, you describe your round trip.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what you did on that trip and the contributions you got from everyone.
Yeah. So if I can plug a Clarksburg business, if you don't mind, I took a carload up. I met some friends up in Hickory. So I took a carload up from Atlanta. And I've got a full-size SUV, and I had it loaded pretty much to the brim. I just needed the passenger seat for my stuff, and then everything else went to Western North Carolina. And then I was going to be in town for one of my friends. Her dad passed away, so I was in town for the funeral. And I called around because the guys, one of my friends, their restaurant has been feeding the rescue workers and the survivors and everything for free. And they mentioned, hey, if you can't get, specific food, if you can get a log of bologna, we'll fry it up. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are my people. So I solicited some donations for some West Virginia pepperoni rolls. And I'm going to try not to cry when I tell you this, but Rogers and Mazza in Clarksburg, they donated 300 pepperoni rolls for me to take back down to Hickory and give to the relief workers.
That's right.
So
Very
much
good.
shout out to them.
Great.
Not to mention all the chapter members here who donated clothing, medical supplies, foodstuff. And Kristen was such a trooper. I mean, she did this all on her own.
I did it in 3 days.
And she drove all the way up there and all the way back. So she loaded up here in Atlanta, took a bunch of stuff up to her contact in Western North Carolina, dropped that off, then went to West Virginia, got another carload of stuff, met him again on the way back south to Atlanta, and was just very, very proud of her and the efforts that she put forth for the chapter.
Sounds to me like true Mountaineers, and we wish you the best of luck taking the baton from Bill. We have a big question for you, though, that you have to answer, and that is, you're there for a game watch. Who's going to win tonight? What's the score going to be, and why do you make the pick you're picking?
Oh, okay. Well, of course, go Mountaineers. Let's see. I think we're gonna. What do I think the score is gonna be? I'm gonna say 24-7.
Yeah.
All right.
And 3 of those touchdowns, all 3 of them are going to be rushing touchdowns.
There you go.
Wow, that's pretty specific.
Steve, she must have been listening. I think, Steve, she was listening to our show.
Yeah.
Now,
I couldn't hear anything out here, so.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll take that. We'll take
Frank
that.
and I and Greg Chris do a show on Wednesday night, which she's been kind enough to plug down here in the chapter meetings on Wednesday evenings. And just to finish up, what I'd like to do, how are we doing on time here?
We got about a couple of minutes.
Okay, what I was going to propose here is that I mute my microphone and Kristen and I walk back into the bar.
Oh, that's great.
And I'll just scan some of the signs that we have up on the wall so you guys can see the spirit that lives down here. And by the way, you already know my prediction from our Wednesday night show. I got the Mountaineers winning 20-18.
Oh, you picked a close one.
A close one, but I'm looking for the defense to step up and win this game for us. Okay. So I'm going to mute the mic and we're going to take a little stroll through Laseter's Tavern. Hang on.
Very good. Very good. We're not going to go. She just turned it off. I don't know if she wanted to do that. But you know what, Steve, what that does is, I'll tell you, I live in Fort Myers during the winter, Florida, and Fort Myers, Florida, and I know the amount of work that Jacqueline Hartley, who's president of that club, puts in. And these chapters raise money for the university. They bring the alums together, which is so important.
Oh, it is. And, I'm real surprised. I talked to somebody, even I got an old teammate, Dave Preston, that lives in Charleston, South Carolina. And, they even have, I don't know if they have a full chapter there, but I know that a bunch of them get together and watch the games and meet and all that. So I don't know if there's a chapter there or not, but it really amazes me how many chapters there are and how many groups of people in different parts of the country that are Mountaineers, and they get together every time there's a game or an event.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. And that's why we wanted to take a few minutes just to show the viewers what's going on down in Atlanta, the money they've raised, and it goes both ways, academically and athletically. But we're here because of the football game. There's there's no ands or buts on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the keys to the game that we talked about on Wednesday, and Mickey already gave his prediction, and you'll see that Greg and I are pretty much close with Mickey in terms of seeing this as a lower scoring game than a higher scoring game and it being close. But again, you'll notice if you look at that all the way through, 2 things pop up. One is the defensive secondary coming through, and the other thing is Garrett Green having a game more like Oklahoma State, less like Penn State, less like Pitt. So I think Mickey's going to show us. Let me see. Are you ready, Mick?
Yeah, I am. Sorry about that. You know me and my technological capabilities, Frank. I hit the wrong button.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If I am I still backstage or am I on the show now?
You're on the show. Let me mute you, and then you do what you have to do.
Okay.
Okay. See if he can do that. And as he's doing that, we'll continue here. The problem with this, obviously, is we can't be true handicappers because we're so committed to one team, not the other. But what's your game prediction? And if you were with us on Wednesday night, what would be the keys to the game from your perspective, and what would be your prediction for the final score?
Well, there's no question that our backside of the defense has to play better. Secondary has to get better, and that's been a continuing thing, for all year. And we have to come up with some big plays. We have to turn them over and contain them. I think it was maybe you that hit the nail on the head. We've just got to put everything together defensively and have a good, sound game plan for him and be able to contain his quarterback and this running back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think what you're saying, at least from my interpretation, I don't think we're going to have to wait later than earlier. And the other thing that I don't think Kansas State's a mystery. They've got 3 horses and they're going to let them loose.
Yeah.
But what we can't have happen, when I think of last week's game, the domination of the Oklahoma State game continued for the first quarter. And you'll look at, and I can't recall it now, I had it written down. The time of possession in the first quarter was something like, 12-3, 10
Right.
to 10 to 5, whatever. And then it turns around on a dime.
Turns around. Right.
And it seems like, when that pass was dropped and the field goal was missed, it just flipped the game.
It did.
And what should have been a 14-0 lead, and then they scored in 3 plays, obviously accelerated by that mistake with the headphones and so on and so forth.
There have been 2 or 3 games that I thought all along while I was watching the game, if we could just get that ahead 2 scores, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
just never did.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be tough. And let me ask you a question that may be unfair, but I think we're all thinking this. So your sense of what the future might bring or could bring, first if the Mountaineers win the game, and then if the Mountaineers lose the game. First, if they win it.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, if we get a win, I think the whole atmosphere changes a little bit. It's a little bit more positive. We get on past that one. We'll be 2-1 in the
3-1.
3-1 in the Big 12. We're still right there. It's still right there for the taking, I think. If we don't, just unfortunately, it's just going to be a big hole to dig out of, and we're going to, but we can't focus on that. We just got to put all of our energy and all of our attention into this game tonight, and play each snap as good as we can play. Coach each snap as good as we can coach, and then we'll see what happens at the end. But I think this team really ultimately is good enough to win this league, and I know from a player and coach's standpoint, they would love to have a few plays in the Penn State game back, a few plays in the Pitt game back, a few plays in last week's game back, but you can't do that. You just got to move forward, and you got to get. Coach Nealon used to say all the time, "If I heard this one time, I heard it 5,000 times. Every day, you either get better or worse. You never stay the same. Each day, no matter what you're doing, whether you're playing football, whether your everyday job, you either come out, you get better or worse. You never stay the same." So, it's up to you what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's right. And if the Mountaineers win, they're right in the mix of things.
They are.
They're right there, and that's important. And I'm looking at my handheld here. We're going to Arizona next, and it looks, with 6 minutes left, Colorado is. I haven't looked at the ESPN probabilities, but it must be like 90%. Colorado 31, Arizona 7, with 5:49 left in the game. And Baylor is continuing to lead Texas Tech going into the fourth quarter, 38-21. As Kelly McCourt already posted, Kansas has beaten Houston. We expected that. And then Iowa State plays UCF with a kick, the same as our kick, well, a little bit earlier. But it looks like Arizona, again, going in, early morning choice, so to speak, before the season, to win the Big 12, or at least be in the Big 12 championship game, is going to lose another game. Lost to Texas Tech last week. And so that really, the WVU's future is ahead of it. Although, again, just a couple weeks ago, the pundits said this is the tougher part of WVU's schedule. But now you got Cincinnati, you got Texas Tech. It may not be as easy as think. And we pundits don't play the game. It's never easy on any given
Right.
day, as we've been seeing it, and we're seeing it again tonight.
Right. I agree. I completely agree. So
Yeah.
we just need some good things to happen. We
Yeah.
need to make some plays. We need to get on both sides of the ball, on offense and defense both.
Yeah.
And just put a complete game together. Now, I
that's
thought we
gotta
did
be-
it against
yeah.
Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was as complete a game as we played the last few years, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. And the nice thing about that is that there's BYU, which they're in the lead, and Oklahoma State did things to BYU that they could not do to us, simply could not. What's your prediction for a score, Steve?
Well, I think it was Greg. I was listening to Mickey and everybody talking and making their predictions, and at the same time I had 28-21 in my mind, and I think I saw you when you put up that caption that was that
There
Greg
it
that
is.
said 28-21.
How
Yeah.
about that?
So
Yeah.
I'm thinking right along with him. So hey, I really it doesn't matter to me. 22-21, 49-48, and wins
Yeah, who
wins
cares?
wins. So so whatever happens, as long as we get the W.
No, Joe Mama, we're not. We're not here for the atmosphere, and that. And we talked about this, Joe, before at the beginning of the show. Is that, I mean, this is the way the world is. I don't care what the industry is. You're there to win. You're there to be successful in terms of what the bottom line is, which in football is winning. But we all know there's a heck of a lot more that goes into everything, anything. For example, a bank that is highly profitable but is unethical. I mean, come on. You don't want to work for a company like that. You certainly don't want to be in a leadership like that, or shame on you. And I don't think, from my perspective, I don't think there's any question that Neil Brown gets very high marks on those other things. Recruits good kids. They stay out of trouble. You never see the players in trouble. And you can be proud of these folks. But we need more wins. We need more wins. And he made a misstep on Monday by talking about issues of tailgating and all this other stuff. And there's another piece here too. It's a business. We all know that. And I went to the Pitt game last year, and I'm telling you, with the ticket, the food, two people, my wife and I, ticket, food, lodging, I dropped over $1,000, which immediately means that a lot of people can't go to games because they can't, particularly from out of town, they can't afford it. And number two is, even if they're in town buying tickets, the days are gone when the family of four would slap $100 on or less, and be able to get into a game and watch. That's just not the way it is anymore. So it's a business. So we're not there for the atmosphere. The atmosphere is always better when we win, but when you lose. And as we were talking before the show, Steve and I, is that there's another WVU alum. West Virginia has been the fertile territory for so many great coaches. Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Rich Rod, we can go on and on and on. But we forget that Kurt Signetti was a quarterback at West Virginia. His dad was a coach at West Virginia. He's been successful everywhere he's been. He's now the head coach at Indiana. He came from James Madison. I think they beat, what was it, Steve? Today they beat Nebraska 56-7, was it?
It was pretty bad. Yeah, it was close. It was that close to that. I don't know the final score, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and now they're undefeated in the Big Ten. When everybody was saying who's gonna be the best in the Big Ten? Is it going to be Oregon, Michigan, or Ohio State? And there's Indiana, his first year. So they're singing his praises in Indiana. So you got to win. I mean, it's tougher nowadays for I mean, when I was
do.
at West Virginia, we were in the Southern Conference, then we went independent. And, it's not that the Southern Conference was an inferior league, but West Virginia had outgrown it. And we did the same thing in basketball. Went from the Southern Conference, then after a while, after we were independent, we went into the Atlantic 10, and then the Big East made the same transition in football, back to independent status, then the Big East, and now the Big 12. It's tougher. It's tougher. It costs more money, and it's these guys get paid a lot of money, but at the same time, you saw what happened to Virginia this week.
Right.
Their head coach quit, a guy 55 years old, and said, the game has changed too much. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And he won a national championship. I think we're getting closer to 7:15. Steve, any final comments at your end?
No, I just everybody just keep rooting for the Mountaineers. We're going to get it. We're going to get it right here.
Boy, I sure hope. I mean, we're all going to be not only crossing our fingers, but just rooting for the Mountaineers to be able to put that complete game together at the very least. No shots in the foot, and don't give K-State a chance to turn it around as we did last week when we missed that field goal, dropped the pass, missed the field goal, and 3 plays later there is a tied game. So let's just see what happens. I want to thank Steve, and I want to thank everybody for watching this show live. We know a lot of people watch in the archive, and just to remind you that I'll be back after about 15 minutes after the game with my partners Greg Christ and Mike Dunlap. As always, we'll do the post-game show. We always enjoy getting the fans' comments about how the game went and what could have been done better and the things they thought that went well. And again, let me remind you that ordinarily I'm not here, or I'm Joey's guest. And the reason for that is that Joey has announced that, let me turn this off and then get this up. There we go. And let me get up here. It's tough both being the host and also the producer, Steve. I got to push buttons and I don't have anybody else to do it. First, let me recommend again, as we did at the beginning of the show, the video that Joey Foster cut yesterday and posted, announcing that he will no longer be an on-air personality with a regular show on the network for reasons that are described in a GoFundMe link. There's a description of the situation that Joey's facing with Yvette Foster, and so we encourage you, if you can, to donate to that. The family's going through a difficult time because of a variety of health issues, and we wish Joey the best. We continue working with him and do everything we can, and I know that he means an awful lot to a lot of people. So for Steve Newberry, thanks, Steve, for being here. I'm Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
My pleasure, and we'll hope to have you back, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, that would be fun. You're so good at this, and have that experience to undergird just everything you say. So thanks, everybody. Go Mountaineers, and if you can, stop by and see us after the game. 15 minutes after the game, the post-game show. Take care, everybody.